Okay, so here is a quick video on installing the head turner mechanism into your Deadwood Inferno. I will also make a quick apology in advance for the background noise of my lovely birds who are very excited to see me today. So to install this, you're going to need the mechanism itself, the 3 different cables that it comes with, the bag of screws, a drill with an 1/8 inch drill bit, a Phillips head screwdriver, and a 5/32 of an inch hex key Allen wrench, whatever you want to call it. The first thing that we're going to do then is you're going to get your head and your main torso here, and I already took all of these little black screws out, but you're going to take all of those out and remove this plate. You're going to take all of them out of the head and remove this plate as well. The very next thing you're going to want to do is to find this one long cable. Obviously these two are pretty short, this one is much longer. You're going to want to remove the twist tie and straighten it out, and then we're going to fish it down through this torso. This will be a lot easier if you have your torso standing up, leaning against a wall or something, so gravity will help you fish it down through the neck here. Okay, so now that we've got this cord all straightened out, we're going to go ahead and feed the female end down into the opening of the torso here. We want the male end sticking out of the top when we're done. So, once again, using gravity, this is pretty simple. Just fish it down through. It's a little bit tricky, but this is definitely the hardest part of the whole process. Okay, and then once it gets down to the bottom of the neck here, trying to get an angle of that, there's a hole right here. It'll pop out of here. We're just going to fish this end down and out through the very lowest rib here. So I'm just going to reach up inside, grab a hold of the end of our cable, and fish it down out through here. If you would like, you could run a zip tie through here, or what I choose to do is there's already a wire existing here with a knot in it, so I just simply give it a twist or two around this to kind of keep it from just slipping out when this is in storage. But obviously, if it does slip out, not a huge deal. It'll go right back in. You want a decent amount of slack on this end, but you also don't want this end to get pulled back inside. So we want at least a good 6 inches sticking out of this side. So holding onto this end, making sure this piece does not go back inside, I'm just going to gently pull on this end until I feel some tugging up at the top here. So we have probably about 2 feet sticking out of the bottom and 6 or 8 inches sticking out of the top here. So now we're going to take our mechanism and our head, take a look at the mechanism. The back is marked with an embossed B that I have marked with some white paint, and the front is marked with an F. Obviously, when this goes in here, we want the F, the front, facing the front of the head, the face, and the back facing the back. So we're going to go ahead and gently insert this, and then twist it until the back is facing as close to the back as we can get it, and the front is as close to the front as we can get it. We want this as centered as possible so that the head looks evenly both ways and doesn't look a little further to the left than the right, or vice versa. Once this is in place, we're going to take an 1/8 inch drill bit. We're going to go around and pre-drill all of these holes. I do find it a little bit easier to go ahead and just drill out the back one first, making sure that this is perfectly centered and putting in the screw, and then going ahead and pre-drilling the rest and inserting the other 7 screws. That way, when you're pre-drilling, this doesn't shift a little bit and you get holes that don't line up when you put 1 or 2 screws in. Another thing to note down here too is, especially with these screws right by where this wire comes out of the head, these 3 especially, is to be extra careful with the drill bit, that you're just drilling through the plastic and not shoving the drill bit way down in the head, otherwise you could potentially cause damage to this wire internally, and obviously we don't want that to happen. I also recommend tightening these screws with a handheld Phillips screwdriver as opposed to an electric drill or screwdriver. because we don't want to over tighten them and cause damage to this plastic flange. Okay, so now that our module's installed, we want to turn our focus to this cable coming out of the head here. There's this little rubber grommet down here. We're going to want to pull that out. I'm able to just grab mine with my fingers and gently work it out. If you have trouble, you could use a pair of needle nose pliers to get a hold of the edge and pull it out. We're going to use this again in a minute. So set it off to the side. So then we take this cable that is included with the kit and unplug the plugs from one another. These will connect the power to the head. This is just a little bit of an extension cable to give it a little bit more play, because this cable will move when the head turns back and forth. And if this would ever get worn out, this is replaceable, whereas the cable actually running into the head, while also replaceable, is a lot more complicated to replace than just an extension. So we're going to want to find the end with the metal prongs that will match up to the end coming out of the head here. These are not threaded like the ones that are already installed on the Inferno. They do have an arrow, just like the ones on here. We're lining up our arrows and attaching them. They push right in. Obviously, the threaded screw doesn't work, but this will be going up inside of the head, so I'm not worried about the waterproofing. If you want to, you could put a couple of wraps of electrical tape on it just to make sure that it doesn't come out, but it is pretty firm. It takes a little bit of force to pull it out, more than you should be putting on a cord coming out of the head anyways. Now that that's done, we're just going to tuck this whole assembly up inside the hole of the head like this. We're going to take our rubber grommet that we had before, pop it on the wire, maybe, there we go, like that, and we're just going to insert the whole thing back into the hole here. This wire coming out is a little bit thicker than the one that originally came out, so it does take a little bit of playing around to get this rubber grommet back into the head the whole way. But there we go. Once it is, that's it. We have a longer cable coming out of the head, and then the cable coming out of the head turning mechanism itself for power. Okay, so now that we have the cable installed in our torso, the cable installed in the head, the mechanism installed in the head, and the plates taken off of both the torso and the head, we are ready to go ahead and assemble. You can assemble the skeleton exactly like you normally do, right up until you get to where you put the head on, which is where we will pick up with how this head attaches. Okay, so our skeleton is all assembled, minus his head here. So, in order to put on the head, we will take this. We're going to thread this black metal pole coming out of the neck into this gray PVC pipe down here. Just like that. Before we go completely on, we want to connect this wire that we added to the power cable coming out of our mechanism. And once that's connected, we're just going to go ahead and tuck the cable connections into the neck here. Now we're going to take this end of the cable coming out of the neck and our extension cable that we've added and connect those together. A note for this one, this has a weatherproof sleeve on it. It's not threaded. It will fit on here, but it is a snug fit. So take your time and be gentle so as to not bend any of these metal prongs. Make sure your arrows are completely lined up and push together and gently wiggle until they seat into each other completely. Once again, if you would like, you can put a wrap of electrical tape or duct tape on it to hold it together, but I have had no issues with them just friction fitting. Okay, so once these are seated together, it should look something like this. The weatherproof cover on this will butt almost up against this kind of ridged edge on the one that's included with the Inferno. At this point in time, we can take this and tuck it down into the neck itself as well. And I like to leave a little bit of a loop of wire sticking out so that it can flex without pinching anything. Now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and gently work this head up in. Once it's seated up inside, it will come to where this portion of the neck is touching right up to here. That's how you know it's completely in. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Also looking from the side, this is resting on the bottom here, so it helps to gently lift up on the head in order to push this in. It should slip right inside once you lift up on it, just a little bit. Takes a little bit of maneuvering. Okay, so once it's installed, it should look something like this. We're going to want to make sure that this bolt down here is lined up with the B marking, as centered as we can get it here, just like that. And then we want to make sure that the B and the bolt are lined up as cleanly with the center of the back as we can get it. Once again, if it's not perfectly centered, the head will skew a little further to one way than the other. Once that's done, we're going to use a 5/32 inch hex key to tighten this bolt down a little bit. That'll bite into that metal pole inside of the skeleton and keep the head from sliding off when you're trying to stand it up. Once that's done, you can tuck any of the excess of this cable down inside here, but I personally like to leave a loop, something like this. Looking at the head here, it's about the size of the palm of my hand. This way, when the head turns, it has a lot more play like this versus pinching at either of these pinch points here. Once again, this cable is heavier than the one that actually is in the Inferno, which is why we're using this extension cable, so that we don't damage the cables that are in the head or in the body. If you want to, you could use a little piece of duct tape or electrical tape to kind of hold this down here, but I had no issues. It's relatively inconspicuous. It stays behind the head, and at night, you never notice it even from behind. So now that this is all done and the head's installed, we want to move on to our power cable. We're going to be using this splitter that I included and the power cable that comes with the Deadwood itself. So our cable here normally would plug into the back like this. Instead of doing this, we are going to use our splitter. We're going to plug one of the male ends of our splitter into here. It should fit really snugly inside of this. You might need to twist it a little bit to get it to pop in completely, but this provides a weatherproof seal and gets it far enough down in there to make a connection. Then we're going to take this end of our adapter and plug it into the female end of our splitter, just like this. This is not threaded as well, but I am able to take this threaded cap and kind of push it up onto this bit, which just secures it a little bit better. You can put a wrap of electrical tape around this if you like, but I don't find it necessary personally. Then we're going to take the last male end of our splitter and plug it into the cable that is coming out of the back that we installed earlier. So we're going to go ahead and plug those into one another, like so. If you like, you can use some tape or zip ties to make sure this is following right behind one of these, but once again, this is something that you don't really notice in the evening or really at all. It kind of blends in pretty well with the color. So this is what our finished product looks like. I would recommend taking this and tucking it into the clip on the side here, because we don't want to pull on this, otherwise this could pop out, this could pop out, or this could pop out, since nothing is really screwed together. That way, tugging on this adapter is not going to affect any of this. So when you plug this in, it will automatically turn on the head turner. The head turner will run all of the time that it's plugged in. The head turner, unfortunately, with this setup, will not work with the timer function on the Deadwood itself. If you want to use the timer function on the Deadwood, I would recommend unplugging the head turner whenever you're not using it. Or what I personally do is I leave my Deadwood on all the time, and I plug the adapter into a digital timer or a smart plug, so the whole unit can turn on and off at the same time every night with all of my other lights. But the option is really up to you with what you would like to do. I wish I could have gotten it wired in so it would work with the timer, but the way that this one is wired, there's just not enough voltage to run the motor in the head turner if I wire it directly in with the timer. But now that this is all done, we are ready to go ahead and stand up the skeleton and turn him on.